Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
Gentlemen, do you think the Jesuits and the Freemasons have anything to do with the perpetuation of heliocentrism?
Oh, I think without a doubt. I went to a Jesuit high school and became disillusioned with school and education because of the fact that I felt like I was being pulled in two directions. I was taught in one class about religious studies and the next class about science, astrology, biology, or astronomy, but I never quite grasped, why are they teaching me both of these? And it took until I was 35 years old to realize that the Jesuits want you in a belief system, and they don't care which one. They don't care if you believe in religion, or they don't care if you believe in science. They want you to be adhering to one of those beliefs. So they didn't do a very good job on me, because the fact that they did that made me gravitate more to the center. And that's where I still am, which is, of course, there's some great aspects of science, and the scientific method is the best way to get to the truth of any question. And there is some aspects of religion that are true, that there's a creator, that, all those things. So really the best path is the middle, but the Jesuits, ones who started all of these observatories.
And this is a question that you probably get the first time by everybody. Why would, quote unquote, they do that? Why the lie? And, I ask every year and I usually get a different answer as it evolves. Your answer, both of you, give me an answer as to why do you think this is happening?
Jeran, you go first.
Sure. And I'm actually going to, because this was important to my realization of where I live. There's two quotes told by two mainstream scientists, one of them being George Ellis, who I think is one of the most famous cosmologists, probably top 5 physicists. And George Ellis said in a 1995 article that people need to be aware that there's a range of models that can explain observations. For instance, I can construct a spherically symmetrical universe with Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on observations. You can only exclude it on philosophical grounds. In my view, there's nothing wrong with that. What I want to bring into the open is the fact that we are using philosophical criteria in choosing our models, and a lot of cosmology tries to hide that. That quote made me realize that science is not what I was taught, because he's a physicist who just said that they've made decisions based on philosophical grounds, and that a lot of cosmology, which is a science, tries to hide that. So why is there a scientific enterprise out there trying to hide a truth from me? And it's because they have a worldview that they want pushed. So that's not real science when you have a worldview that you're trying to prove, that you're trying to find evidence for. They're basically pushing their idea. And even Ellis has at least he admitted that he says, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that, saying that in his opinion, there's nothing wrong with making these decisions philosophically, but it should be brought out into the open. And the other quote is from Edwin Hubble, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard that, but when Edwin Hubble noticed that galaxies seem to be moving away from the Earth, which seems to bring into question, doesn't that seem like we're the center? Since everything is moving away from the Earth, well, then we must be the center. So he said that such a condition would imply that we occupy a unique position in the universe, analogous in a sense to the ancient conception of a central Earth. He says this hypothesis cannot be disproved. So it can't be disproven that we are the center of the universe, yet everybody you ever talk to in science will tell you that it's already been disproven. And he says, but it is unwelcome and can only be accepted as a last resort. Therefore, we disregard this possibility. The unwelcome position of a favored location must be avoided at all costs. It is intolerable. Therefore, in order to restore homogeneity and to escape the horror of a unique position, it must be compensated by spatial curvature. There seems to be no other escape. That is the most important quote to my realization, because I saw what he did. He saw observationally what was going on in the universe, and he made up a theory, the one that you've heard about before, that we're all on a balloon, and that as the balloon expands, every point on the balloon is getting further away from each other, and that means that everyone in the universe sees the same thing with everything going away from them, all that nonsense. But they made up that theory because the observations told them that we were the center. And then to call it over and over again, we disregard this possibility that it's intolerable to escape the horror of a unique position. There seems to be no other escape. These men hated the idea of that was presented by the Bible. And I can see why that would be. And I've always said, I don't want to be in a world that's been run by the Catholic Church for the last 500 years. And so I respect science for what they did to move away from the dogma that the Catholic Church was trying to force on people. But really what they did is just created their own religion that now they've stuck they've stuck to that dogma, and they've made mistakes. And now that it's at a point where they can't admit, they can never come out and say, oops, we were wrong. The earth is actually flat. And so they have to lie about it. And so that is, if you're talking about the reason, for me, I think that's the reason, that science has no choice. Once they went headfirst into this idea that how wrong the church is and this is the truth, then when they pushed it so hard, if they ever realized down the road that they were wrong, they couldn't have come out about it. It would have lost all their jobs. Science would have gone by the wayside. People would have gone back to the church. And so I think they just try and move along every day with maintaining their hold on the world. They're the high priests right now. They're the ones who dictate truth to everyone. And they're not going to relinquish that position just by admitting that they were wrong about something. So I think there's enough quotes that tell us that the world that we think we live in has been decided by people who have a certain worldview and are pushing that worldview behind the name of science.
I was having this conversation with somebody the other day regarding, again, the makers of these monumental, the megaliths around the world, the pyramids and so on, how I think that the present-day Egyptians, or even going back to the what he called it, the dynasties, pre-dynastic people were the ones who I think did it. And perhaps is what Dave's theory is, they moved to the outside layers of our realm, our plane, and they took that technology. Let's call it Atlantis, Lemuria. Let's say that they existed at one point. They moved away from us, and they have that technology over there. Now, what we have here, the technology, the tin cans that still fly on the air after 100 years, yes, we have better engines, but it's still the same concept. They still crash. It's all revenue. Fossil fuels, all this stupid backward technology. We need over unity. We need, 0-point energy. And perhaps those civilizations that are out there have it. But because we live in this revenue paradigm that we need to, we used to fight wars. We used to make weapons to fight wars. Now we fight wars to make weapons. As long as we have that yoke that subjugates the entire planet, we're not going to be allowed to make contact with those people. What do you think? And it's not speculation. I get it.
And David said it great earlier when he said that the people who were left behind here during the Ice Age, they would still have civilizations here. Not everybody would move out, but they would have stories, right, about Atlantis. They would have stories about times past.
Oral tradition.
Right. And that's what we get, is a broken up, kind of convoluted understanding of what was in the past, because, the people that better understood it or would have written that down have moved out. And the people that were here, kind of were able to remember stories, but that's about it. So I think that's absolutely the truth. And the way that we're told about Pangea and these continents all broke apart from each other, people don't realize that all the continents are connected by the ground. There's a ground underneath the ocean. It's not as if we're all islands that moved apart from each other. We're all connected to the same ground. So that doesn't even make sense. And they tell us that these continents are shifting 1 foot per year. And then you have to say, well, if Stonehenge was built 5,000 years ago, then that means that it's moved 5,000 feet, which how can it be astronomically aligned if it's moved a mile since it was built? So, their stories just don't even add up anymore.
Or the Giza Plateau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I agree with everything Jeran said on why the lie, and take it a little further. And I'm sure, I think Jeran is on board with this also, is they don't want us to know who we are or where we are or even what we are. They want us to believe there is no more. Everything has been discovered, Truman, if you remember that line from the Truman Show.
Yep.
And to believe in scarcity, to keep us in fear, so we're in a low vibration and we don't realize our true natural power. We lived in a natural world with natural processes that all worked perfectly, but they have created a artificial world with technology, and they've separated us from the earth. They've separated us from our true essence and for control. So, they're hiding more land. They're hiding everything so they can have dominion over us. And I think that is the main reason why they can't let the secret out, because they would lose power. I mean, imagine with all the stuff that's going on just here in the United States, if people found out, hey, there's a place you can go where there is no government doing what they're doing here, there would be a mass exodus.
Gentlemen, do you think the Jesuits and the Freemasons have anything to do with the perpetuation of heliocentrism?
I think without a doubt. I went to a Jesuit high school and became disillusioned with school and education because of the fact that I felt like I was being pulled in two directions. I was taught in one class about religious studies, and the next class about science, astrology, biology.
Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys.
Or astronomy, sorry. But I never could quite grasp, why are they teaching me both of these? And it took until I was 35 years old to realize that the Jesuits want you in a belief system, and they don't care which one. They don't care if you believe in religion, or they don't care if you believe.
About to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage. Mirage.